This is F1 Basics from Beginner, where I break down everything you need to know as a first-time viewer. In part 1, we looked at the different types of grid penalties. Now let's look at how those penalties get applied. So once qualifying is complete, we have the original order of the drivers, but those positions aren't necessarily where each driver will start. The FIA applies any outstanding grid penalties and establishes the final starting grid. This means a driver who qualified behind another driver can ultimately start ahead of them if that driver has been moved down because of a penalty. This becomes more complicated when several drivers have penalties that affect the same part of the grid. Imagine one has a 5-place penalty, another has a 20-place, and another has a back of the grid penalty. You can't simply move a driver down by their penalty because there's only 22 positions available. Instead, the FIA applies the relevant regulations to determine the order of the penalized drivers before establishing the final grid. We saw a good example of this at the Belgian Grand Prix. Red Bull's Isaac Hadjar qualified P10 but received a 30-place penalty after taking multiple power unit elements. Because that penalty exceeded 15 places, he was required to start at the back of the grid. During the same Grand Prix, Fernando Alonso also received a 20-place penalty for taking additional power unit elements, which also required him to start from the back of the grid. Yet Hadjar started in P21 while Alonso started in P22. This is where the order of the penalties becomes important. The FIA doesn't treat every back of grid penalty as an identical instruction to occupy the final grid position. Their starting positions are determined using the order established by the sporting regulations. In Belgium, that meant Hadjar was placed ahead of Alonso, despite both being required to start at the back. And this is why a driver with a back of the grid penalty can start ahead of another driver who qualified lower than them. So when you're looking at an F1 starting grid, remember that qualifying gave us the original order, not necessarily the order that the race will begin with. Once penalties are applied, the FIA constructs the final grid according to the regulations. And when multiple drivers are sent to the back, qualifying position and the order of their penalties can still determine who starts ahead.